Hey everybody, hope you're still doing well at home and haven't gone totally crazy yet. Welcome to our series called Stressed Out. This is lesson 3. If you're just now joining us, jump back a couple of Wednesdays and catch up. So I've been opening these lessons with a couple of questions. This one's going to be no different. So question 1, what are some things that you would want to end quickly? So some normal answers for this would be school, final exams, personal one for me, doctor's visits, especially when they require shots. Not a big needles fan. Quarantine, some people might be saying that. Now, second question, what are some things you would want to last as long as possible? Some people might actually be saying quarantine because of getting out of school. What about this? Spending time with a friend, maybe summer vacation, maybe a trip to Disney World. So what's something you would want to last as long as possible? What are some things that satisfy you, make you happy, help you to have fun? So maybe a good book, movie, a really good video game, maybe the perfect day out hiking, okay? Lastly, what things or circumstances stress you out because either A, they take a long time to achieve, B, they slow you down, or they make you uncomfortable? So like graduating high school, that takes a while, doesn't it? Traffic, that might stress you out. When I was living in Chattanooga, I'd hit rush hour traffic going home almost every day from work, and what should have been a 30-minute drive would easily turn into an hour or more in bumper to bumper traffic. So I want you to think about our world for a moment. We are addicted to instant gratification. Years ago, they called kids growing up in the 80s and 90s the microwave generation, and now it's even worse. So often we want things really fast. Faster internet, faster computers, faster cars, faster food. The advantage to speed is that it makes things easier for us. Work becomes easier, things become more efficient, and productivity goes up. But there are some dangers too. Too much fast food, too much McDonald's, unhealthy. We can develop a sense of impatience. We know that as road rage in some places. We can also develop a low tolerance for things that require a big commitment. How about stressful situations that happen in our life? Think of those stressful moments that bring us to that breaking point of our comfort or of our faith. What is God teaching us during those times? We're going to take a look at another story from Abraham's life and learn how he dealt with that situation that he probably wished would have just gone away as quickly as a root canal. Now, while we would prefer the instant gratification of avoiding stressful situations, God's timing is perfect, and God wants us to learn something during those difficult times. So take a look at Genesis 22. I'm going to read this story to you. It's about Abraham's faith being tested. You've probably heard this one in school, so just follow along. Sometime later, God tested Abraham's faith. "Abraham," God called. "Yes," he replied, "here I am." "Take your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, which I will show you." The next morning, Abraham got up early. He saddled his donkey and took 2 of his servants with him, along with his son Isaac. Then he chopped wood for a fire for a burnt offering and set for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day of the journey, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. "Stay here with the donkey," Abraham told the servants. "The boy and I will travel a little farther. We will worship there, and then we'll come right back." So Abraham placed the wood for the burnt offering on Isaac's shoulders, while he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them walked on together, Isaac turned to Abraham and said, "Father." "Yes, my son," Abraham replied. "We have the fire and the wood," the boy said, "but where's the sheep for the burnt offering?" "God will provide a sheep for the burnt offering, my son," Abraham answered, and they both walked on together. When they arrived at the place where God had told him to go, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood on it. Then he tied his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. And Abraham picked up the knife to kill his son as a sacrifice. At that moment, the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." "Yes," Abraham replied, "here I am." "Don't lay a hand on the boy," the angel said. "Do not hurt him in any way, for now I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld from me even your son, your only son." Then Abraham took up and saw a ram caught by its horns in a thicket. So he took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering in place of his son. Abraham named the place Yahweh Yireh, which means the Lord will provide. To this day, people still use that name as a proverb. On the mountain of the Lord, it will be provided. So here are some observations to make along the way of this. Purpose of the test. When something's tested, it's usually intended to reveal some value, quality, or attribute in that person. Testing often stretches us to our limits. For instance, we might test God to see if he cares, or if he's faithful, or we may test others to see if, say, they're trustworthy. This test in Genesis 22, it's not meant to produce faith. It was to reveal faith. To God, to Isaac, to Abraham's servants, and most importantly, to the world. Essentially, God wanted to know if Abraham would be faithful in the most stressful situations in his life. God allows things to happen as tests to see if his people are faithful and obedient in difficult circumstances. Essentially, God is searching us to find out if what we say is equal to how we react. The journey from Beersheba to Moriah, it's about 3 days. So Abraham had 3 days on the road to think about this stressful situation. No doubt he wanted it to go away. Think about how he could have instantly dealt with the situation. He could have ignored it, ignored God. He could have fled. He could have compromised. He could have tried to negotiate with God. But look what he does. He acts almost immediately, even though he likely didn't feel like doing it. Child sacrifice. Okay, now this is harsh. It wasn't outside of Abraham's comprehension, though. The concept understood as child sacrifice was a practice of the fertility gods of that time. It was confusing, though, because God had made a covenant with Abraham that he would give him a son, and now that promise was potentially being taken back. So, what is God teaching through stressful situations in our lives? First off, stressful relationships. Everyone knows that life is all about relationships. With God, with family members, with friends, and naturally those relationships are far from perfect. We will experience sometimes, well, actually many times, when our relationships will become stressed and tested. When we get hurt or angry over a broken relationship, our first inclination may be to abandon the relationship because we don't want to deal with the hurt and anger. Avoiding these issues is a form of instant gratification. We feel like we're satisfied because we maneuvered around the uncomfortable conversations necessary to restore the relationship. But when we work through the conflict or problem and stick it out, the relationship will become much stronger on the other side. And there'll be greater satisfaction in saving the relationship instead of severing it. Second, the testing of our faith. The truth is, our faith is tested to develop growth, to develop learning, to show us perseverance. Those things don't happen automatically. We don't just wake up one day and say, I'm someone who perseveres in my faith without going through any situation that requires perseverance. Think about an experience, say maybe a mission trip, where you're completely out of your comfort zone. What happens when you're vulnerable in a situation like that? Your true faith is revealed. Do you turn to God? Do you freak out? Do you trust others on your team? Do you believe that you'll get through your mission project? When our faith is tested, it should motivate us to work on those areas where we need growth. Third, testing to see if God is first. We say we love God. We say God is the most important thing in our lives because he's so good to us. Would we give God a chance if there were nothing in it for us? We want God to bless us, protect us, provide for us. Would we give God our lives if he gave nothing back but himself? We want to live differently from the rest of the world, experiencing a deep and vibrant faith. Do our lives truly have a place for God, or are we simply living for today? Are we giving God our best, or are we just giving God our leftovers? So let's apply some of what we've gone over today. Let me ask you some questions. See what you think. As always, these questions don't have a right or wrong answer. These questions are meant to stretch your thinking, stretch your thought processes, and see where you are. First, is your attitude towards challenges and tests typically positive or negative? 2, are there any areas in your life that you're avoiding because they're too difficult to deal with? 3, what have you had to sacrifice for God? If you made some kind of sacrifice, what did you learn during that process? 4, what does God want you to sacrifice that you're having a hard time obeying? 5, would you say God is first in your life? Or is there something else that's in the place of God? 6, sometimes God shows up and provides at the last minute. Have you ever experienced a time when you had to trust God for something all the way to the last possible minute? All right, lastly, here's your memory verse for the week. Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. Therefore, since we're surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Thanks for joining us. As always, new content comes out on Sundays and Wednesdays. Give us a like and share, and please subscribe. If you'd like to know more about us, check us out at sunsetyouthgroup.com. If you'd like to follow us on Facebook, go to Sunset Youth Group at hashtag SYG Carlsbad. Instagram is sunset_youth_group. You can email us at sunsetyouthministry@gmail.com and leave a comment down below to let us know that you're here. Have a great day.